Okay, 10.2 circles. So the general formula for the circles. This is the vertex form. Sometimes you'll see it said as standard form, but I call it vertex form. Where we have our center at HK. So the center is located at HK. And remember, we take the opposite sign. And then our radius is R. So we're going to square root the right side. A few things that will come up that we need to refresh our memory on. Diameter is what? Is 2R. Yeah, so we're going to multiply the radius by 2. Midpoint formula. Just the midpoint of the two, like the x's divided by 2. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2. y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And then distance. Formula is what? I will not give you any of this. I will expect you to know that. So those things, this is like kind of all that you need for this section. So number 1, it says find the center and the radius in simplified form. That means you're going to leave as a radical, but you're going to simplify it. So for instance, if I had the square root of 8, you would not want to leave it like that. You would want to pull out a 4, and it would be 2 square root of 2. So we're going to get a little bit of that practice in. That's what it means by simplified form. So number 1, my center is where? There's nothing there. We assume that it is 0, 0. And my radius is 3. Yes. Yes. Square root 9. Number 2, 0, 0, and my radius is square root of 5, and there's really nothing I can do to that. All right, any questions about 3 through 6? Remember that you do take the opposite sign. Okay, number 7, write the equation of a circle with a center at 5, -1, diameter of 16. Well, we don't put diameter in the equation. We put radius. So radius would be 8, and then r squared would be 64. So my equation would be x minus h, so x minus 5 squared. Yeah, the x minus h squared plus y minus k squared will be given to you. Plus y plus 1 squared equals 64.
So if it gives you the diameter, you have to go through the radius first?
Because the diameter is not a part of your equation. So number 8, sometimes it helps to draw a picture, but this is where the midpoint and distance formulas come in, because they give you endpoints and then they ask you to write the equation. So if I'm thinking about maybe drawing a picture at 2, 6 and -2, -6. So looks something kind of like that. I want to find the midpoint, which kind of looks like it's 0, 0, but we can verify it with the midpoint formula. And then I want to find the radius, which is just half of the distance. So I need to find the distance between the two and then cut that in half. So to find my midpoint, MP, you can put it into that nice little formula. But here is my shortcut, because I feel like, I don't know if anyone has ever told you this, and it might change your life, or you might have just known it and it's really intuitive. But I just look at my x values and I think, what is the midpoint between those two? Like, what's the middle point? 0. And I don't do any math because it's stupid to write it all out. And then I look at -6 and 6, and what's the halfway point between those two? 0. So you look at the x's, you look at the y's, and then you just find the halfway point between the two. Then distance. This one I kind of shortcut a little bit. But if you look at your x's, what is the distance between +2 and -2? Like, how much area is between them? 4. And then between +6 and -6. And I kind of just, in my head, I imagine like a number line. And I'm plotting both the 6 and the -6. And I'm thinking, how much distance is between those? So it'll be 12, right? And this, you'll probably need your calculator. So, Joel, will you tell me what you get when you do that? 160. From here, I want to simplify. So what can I take out? 16. So 16 and 10. The square root of 16 is 4. So 4 root 10. And that's my diameter. But if I want to find my radius, what do I do? Divide by 2. So then it becomes 2 root 10. And so when I plug that into the formula, it becomes x squared plus y squared, because the midpoint is 0, 0, equals 2 root 10 squared. Now when you square that, it gets applied to the 2 and to the 10. And it would become 4 times 10, which is 40. So my final answer would be this. Now, in your head, you're probably thinking, oh, I can just use calculator and it'll do all that for me. But this could be a non-calc question. So I want you to be prepared for that. Okay, so this one, it gives me the center at the origin. The origin means what? 0, 0. Good. And passes through 5, -12. So we have our center, but we don't have our radius. How could we figure that out?
Can you do origin to the point?
Yes, and I could just find the distance of the origin to the point. And so distance, that distance, would that give me the diameter or the radius?
It's only going in one way.
It would give me the radius because it gives me the center. So when it says end points, that means it's the diameter. But when it says center and end point, that means radius. If you need to draw a picture, so 5, -12 will be somewhere down here. I want to find this distance. It's a beautiful circle. So that's going to be my radius. So then I don't need to cut this one in half. Okay, so distance from 0 to 5 is just 5 squared, plus the distance from 0 to 12 is 12 squared. And so put that in your calculator. Remember, if this were a non-calc section, I wouldn't give you numbers this big. They would be very tiny, because I don't expect you to know how to do all of this. So 25 plus 144, 169. And isn't that 13? Perfect. So my equation would be x squared plus y squared equals 13 squared, which is 169. So y'all try number 10. Okay, so to find the midpoint, you can use decimals or fractions. This will be your center. So whenever you're finding the midpoint, that is your center. And then the distance is going to be my diameter. And so you end up getting square root of 26. What I did, and you can do this every single time, is I went ahead and put it in my equation as square root of 26. Then I divided by 2, because that's the radius. And then I put squared out to the side. Now when you square that, you have to square the top and the bottom. So the 26, just the square root goes away, and then the bottom squared becomes 4. Then I simplified 26 over 4 to be 13 over 2. Number 11. So this is the last type of example that you would see. And it has center here, tangent to the line x minus 1. Tangent means that it doesn't go through it, but it touches it, like it scrapes the surface. So I'm going to draw a picture just to kind of show you what it would look like. So I have a center at negative 1, 2, so here. And then I'm going to graph the line x minus 1. And so that line would look like this. So that means that my circle is going to touch, there we go, touch that line. The line is not going to go through it, so it doesn't go through the circle, it just kind of touches it, like it rests on it. And so, to figure out what the equation would be, you are actually going to plug in any x value. I usually use the negative 1. And I figure out what my y value would be. Then I'm going to use that to find the distance for the radius. So when I plug in x equals negative 1, negative 1 minus 1, I end up getting negative 2. So I have an ordered pair at negative 1, negative 2.
You just plug in the x value with the center?
So like, yes. Then, yeah, you're going to use that 1 point. And then I'm going to find the distance to that. And then that'll be my radius. So the distance from 2 to negative 2 is 4. So distance. The x values, there's no distance for the x values. Oh. Okay, I want to go back and I want to find a new point because I don't like that point. Because I'm not sure. But I'm not sure that. So what I want to do is I know on this line, I know that this point right here, the y-intercept, will for sure be on there. So I want to plug in for the y-intercept. Because that one always works. So I know for sure that the y-intercept is at what? 0, negative 1. So I want to find that distance. I want to find the distance from my center to my y-intercept, which is at 0, negative 1. So I have the point, negative 1, 2, and 0, negative 1. I want to find the distance between those two. And that is what will get me my radius. So the distance between my x values, so -1 and 0 is what? 1 squared. The distance between +2 and -1 is what? 3 squared. So 1 squared plus 3 squared is 10. So my radius is the square root of 10. When I put it into my original equation, it would look like x plus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals r squared, which is just what? 10. Which one? So let's just do a graphing really quickly. Pretty easy, but you've got -3. The center would be at 3, -1. And the radius would be what? 5. So you just go out 5 on each side. You connect the dots. So the graphing part is easy. I do want to look at one on the homework. So you can do number 15 if you desire. Is it number 8 that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, number 8. So if it's a tangent to the x-axis, if I normally have to draw a picture for these. This is on the homework. 0, 4. Here's my center. The x-axis is this line right here. So imagine my circle going, that's a beautiful circle. So if it's tangent to the x-axis and my center is here, what point is it going to touch on the x-axis? 0, 0. So then you'll use that to find your radius.